Hey everyone, Greg Staley here from Diverge Media. The following interview is with Carlos Roman from Bread and Barley in Covina, California. We talk about how hard lockdowns have been on business owners, what it really means for business owners and jobs in general, and as well as the unfairness of lockdowns to business owners who, through no fault of their own, are losing everything. And if they lose everything, it won't be long until their employees are left high and dry. Specifically, as Carlos points out in the interview, what does a chef do if all the restaurants close? My understanding is you've since run into, they've shut you down as a result of that incident that day.
Yeah, they came back the following day, and needless to say, they were pretty upset about the whole situation, and they hit me with a closure and a suspension, and then pending a further review and a hearing. The hearing was kind of just a quick put together thing between a few of the health officials and an attorney that they had, basically just to tell me that I was wrong about everything I had done and they were going to revoke my license.
So let's walk the viewer that doesn't know the story yet through kind of what happened that day. So I don't want to put it in your words, but to summarize quickly, and we'll let you walk through it. You got a call from your head waitress slash manager, if I remember correctly.
Right.
The health inspector had some issues with somebody who had stopped to eat some food on your patio, which is actually city patio that was designated for your restaurant. And since you basically made sure people heard your point of view and how tough things were as a result of the measures, you blocked the health inspector in with your truck, and the police showed up. And so just walk us through basically the beginning of that day to the climax, and then we'll go from there.
I was pretty upset that the health inspector had to come out on a Sunday afternoon and decide to take pictures and cite me for something that I don't even think we were doing anything wrong. Like you said, it was a city patio, city area, city property, and it's not my job to police that area. And so some people had got their takeout order from my restaurant, which is already next to impossible. You can't profit in a restaurant like mine with takeout only. And so we were doing that. And when they sat down to eat, there are a handful of people in our city of Covina that are very up about the whole COVID situation and are out looking for people that they can call on. And I'm assuming that's what happened because the health department did say that they got a complaint. Somebody had driven by and maybe complained that someone was outside and eating. So they showed up, they took their pictures, and that's when I got the phone call. I was really upset. I wanted to confront the health inspector and ask him why. Why is he doing this? What grounds does he have to tell me that I have to police an area in front of my restaurant? What grounds does he have to tell me that a city area that I don't pay rent on, that doesn't belong to me, that's not in my control? Why do I have to control that? Why do I have to police that? And outside of that, who do they think they work for? You know, the only reason any of these people even have jobs is because restaurants like mine that pay tens of thousands of dollars in taxes and fees and health permits. And I've done everything right. I've done nothing wrong. I've done everything right over the years. And here this guy is going to come and tell me that I'm going to be subject to a fine, penalty. It's punitive. They're just trying to punish us at this point.
One of the things you talked about, and I want to get across for the viewer, is the stress that you're in as a business owner under these restrictions. Now, you're in Covina, California, we're in Canada, but I think your story touched many people all around the world because it's the same story that a lot of business owners are being forced through. So you talked about your GoFundMe in that interview with me, and we did the article on it, and you talked about, through the 8 months, $50,000 that you'd raised so far was just enough to get you paid up on debt. And then you were concerned at the time about another lockdown was being threatened. So they were talking about the 30-day lockdown, but since the incident of somebody stopping to eat on your patio and having your voice heard, you're saying that they're putting you through a quasi, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like a roundabout hearing of sorts on the matter.
Yeah. At this point, like I said, it's punitive. They're angry. They want to see, I guess, my place suffer even more. I don't understand it. They came out and they hit me with a $500 fine every single day that I didn't close. They wanted me to close the restaurant completely, close it completely down, due to interfering with a health inspector and not following a COVID-19 lockdown procedure. So,
And to be clear, other places are still able to do takeout currently in California.
yeah, other places can do takeout. It's just, it's not enough. A business like mine wasn't designed to be a profit center for food, like a drive-in would be. You know, an In-N-Out Burger or one of these places that you come in, you get your food, you leave. Those are designed to be food profit centers that you come in, you get your food, you go. I'm a sit-down restaurant. You know, it's built for an environment for experience where you come in and you have a few beers and you drink your beers with a gourmet meal. You don't go to your favorite steak restaurant to get a styrofoam box with a steak in it. That's just not the way it works. We're not designed to be profitable that way. Even if my sales came anywhere near what they used to be before COVID, there wouldn't be the level of profit that we need in order to survive. And that's just a simple issue of, it isn't that it's not that type of a design. Um,
The
we can't
business
just go.
model wasn't set up that way.
Correct. And we can't just go redesign our restaurant to be a completely different. You don't go from selling, steaks and chicken and fish to just pushing out, cheap burgers and hot dogs the next day because that's what you need to do to survive. It doesn't work that way. It's an entire branding image. It's not something we're known for. It's not what you do. And that's really the difficulty here, is where our governor of our state has unilaterally made this decision for every single restaurant in the state without any concern or care for what happens. There's not going to be nothing left to open when they're done with this, because they've done this so long now that there is no amount of money to cure this. You can't. I've given up on trying to keep track of what the costs are. I could sell everything I own, and it doesn't cover the back owed taxes and the back fees and the back payroll and all of my overhead. And it's gotten to a point where there's just no way to cure that. We're just doing our best not to go completely out of business at this point, hoping that maybe someday we can recover. It's going to take me 5-10 years to recover from this.
And how many, restaurant owners are, you think, in a similar position in California because of the measures that have been put in place to kind of combat COVID, you would say?
It's very simple. You could go to any restaurant in Southern California, in any locked down city, and just ask the staff, ask the waitress, ask if there's a manager there you could speak to. Say, hey, how's it going? How you guys doing? Are you paying the bills? They're going to say no. All of them are going to, every single one of them. There is not one single restaurant that's going to say, we're doing fine, everything's great. It doesn't work that way. The only ones that are doing great are these big franchise corporations that are set up to sell food by the millions and can profit because they buy entire fields of lettuce and tomatoes and beef, and that's what they're set up to do. I don't think McDonald's or Burger King or In-N-Out Burger has any issues right now. They designed their businesses to be that way from the very beginning. But no restaurant that's a sit-down restaurant can survive this without some sort of deep funding.
Well, and that's one of the things you mentioned to us the last phone interview we did, was that I think he said roughly 90% of your profit, like not the stuff that helps you pay your bills, but like if I was actually going to make money, it comes from alcohol, which that's all around your setting, your environment, your
Right.
service, and that's something that's been denied from you. So I'm just trying to get that across to people from a business sense, because I think there's a disconnect um, between what a business owner goes through and what people perceive a business owner is. And I see a business owner, I see someone like yourself struggling, grinding, and doing everything you can to keep paying bills and keep paying his staff and I think some people just see somebody who has money and they think it's just like an unlimited, nonstop thing. But how much of this has been a drain on you since this all began? Like, can you walk us through the optimism maybe at the beginning of 8-9 months ago to kind of where we're at now?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, because that's also the perception of our government. They look at business owners like the fat cats that have all the money. And it's probably because of the amount of taxes. I pay more in taxes than my personal income. I just fired a check off for $17,000 in back sales taxes. So I collect more taxes on my sales than what I do in profit. Um, but in the beginning of this whole situation, we were on board. I think as business owners, we all knew we were, you get this, we're all in it together kind of sales pitch that they gave us. And they said, hey, we got to close, we got to save lives, we got to slow the spread, we got to not, people are getting sick, they're dying, we got to stem this. Okay, great. So we went ahead and did that. And that's where you draw off your initial savings and your initial nest egg that as a business owner, you try to put away for a rainy day. That doesn't last very long. We don't plan in business to go and shut our doors for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. It's not something you do in business. And people need to understand that cash flow is huge. In a small business like mine, payroll can be $8,000 to $12,000 every single week. That adds up very quickly. The taxes on that is 8 to 10% of that. And then you have standard overhead that's fixed that's not going to go away. My insurance company doesn't say, oh, you were closed, we'll give you a refund. It doesn't work that way. You pay everything just as if you were open, and you're generating no income. So not only are you negative, you're generating bills without any method of paying them at all. There's no income at all. We operate on slim margins as it is in a restaurant. You may have a 30 to 32% food cost, and then you have a labor cost on top of that, and then standard overhead. I'd be lucky to take home 6-7% of my overall sales, and that's after a break-even point of a certain baseline. So once they allowed us to open up again inside, they did it with protocols. So they required, certain distancing, limiting the amount of chairs and tables, sanitation techniques, things that we're in a way used to doing already, but it was an added expense of all of this sanitation and protective gear that our staff had to use, masks and face shields and the constant cleaning. That really is not a cheap thing to incorporate into a business, especially when you have to do it overnight. And it was not very available. As you know, most suppliers, you couldn't buy bleach at the beginning of the year. You couldn't buy a gallon of bleach. It didn't matter if you had 100 suppliers, that nobody had it. There was no way to do that. And so that really put a strain on being able to comply in the first place. After a few weeks of that, they decided to shut down the indoor and they allowed outdoor dining. Well, most places like mine don't have an outdoor area to dine at in the first place. Cities decided to be proactive and help us out. So they gave us an area in front of the restaurant that's usually designated as parking and told us that we could use that area. But we'd have to make it something that someone would want to sit and eat at. In Southern
California, yeah.
Like 110-degree strip of asphalt in the blazing sun right in front of the building, that doesn't cut it. So I had to go out and buy a canopy, which again, not available. Everybody was buying canopies. Everybody was buying outdoor furniture, patio furniture, tables, planters, turf. All this stuff had to get put into place in order to make it somewhat comfortable for people to sit and enjoy a meal. So we did that. It cost tens of thousands of dollars on top of, you're throwing good money to bad money, because it's on top of all of this piled up debt that's already been accumulating. And now here we have to essentially build a structure outdoors overnight so that we could continue to do business. So we did that. Put me even further back into the hole, but we need to generate some sort of an income stream. We have to have money coming in order to pay some of our bills. I'd rather make $5 and owe $10 than owe $10 and make $0. So that was the thinking. It was negative every month, but I did what I could to make up the balance. Payment plans with certain taxes and fees, credit, loans. You do everything you can to put it all together. So that's what we did. And then here comes a new lockdown. No outdoor dining either. I think, a death blow to a lot of businesses. I personally know a lot of businesses that will not ever open again.
I think that's it. That's where, people need to understand where business owners are at. And I guess the concept maybe the populace has here in Canada, at least, not sure what it's like where you are, is, oh, just a little bit longer, just a little bit longer. And the reality is, for the business owner, and what I'm hearing from people like yourself and others that are involved in businesses, I don't know if I can pay this month, let alone next month or the month after, next week even. And
Right.
so what do politicians need to know, and what do the general populace need to know about what it takes to run a business?
In all reality, I don't even think they care anyways. They're faced with this life or death situation that they think that they're staring down. It hasn't helped. California is the worst place for COVID in the country, and everything's locked down. So you can go to Walmart and you can stand in line to use the self checkout for 45 minutes. You can go to Target, you can go to Costco. My dad called me this morning and said he was in Costco this morning, and he said there's thousands of people inside Costco, and everyone's standing in line and bunched together and piling up and down each aisleway. And that's just the way it is. And it's okay. That's deemed as a acceptable thing to do. But outdoor dining in the open air has been the scapegoat, the culprit. We're the ones that are responsible for all of the COVID spreading. I don't know how that there's no evidence for it. There's no proof around it. Judges in California have said that there's no proof. The health department of LA County was told that there was no proof by a judge. Provide proof and you can do this. And then here comes the state where the governor said, oh, I don't care. And he shut us down anyways by governor order. And apparently there's legal language in our government where a state leader can deem that at any point that he chooses. And now he's got the health department out to enforce it. And they're enforcing it in full effect. They're coming in on weekends, on holidays, in the evenings, anytime. They're enforcing it. They have put all of their effort into shutting down small mom and pop restaurants. They've put zero effort into maintaining any type of a clean environment in any of the big boxes or any of the corporations. I went to Target a couple of weeks ago, and they were no longer sanitizing the self-checkouts. And I asked the person standing there, how come you're not sanitizing these anymore? You used to spray them down after each use and wipe them off. He said, oh, the constant alcohol spray was ruining the machines, so we can't do it anymore. So, oh, well, you're not a small restaurant, so nobody cares. The health department's not here to enforce anything. They don't care. Rather, they're going to spend all of their time and effort trying to shut down small restaurants like mine.
Yeah, it's a curious situation that we find ourselves in. We're in a unique spot here in Ontario where recently there was an now independent MPP. He's been kicked out of the party for merely bringing up that he didn't agree with lockdowns, and he cited medical evidence and scientific evidence saying that this isn't merited, and they kicked him out. And then the next day, we had our former chief public health officer of Ontario, where I'm at, come out and say that he agreed with that MPP on all 5 of the points he made. But I feel like we're a little bit further down the road where we have politicians fighting back a little bit, or at least the impression that they are. But one of the things, like you're saying, they're coming all out at the small business owner, the restaurant owner. Meanwhile, Costco, Walmart, Target, the big box stores are getting a pass. Well, they caught on to that here in Canada, and their solution is now they're coming after some of the big box stores, which I don't necessarily agree with either, although they need to do their part to try to mitigate things. But it's just, I want a fair environment for everyone, not necessarily more crackdown from everyone. So you're in a position now where you've been shut down because of your dispute with the health inspector. What's the resolve mechanism for you there in California? Even with the court proceedings, you feel like you're between a rock and a hard place right now?
I don't know that there is, because from what I gather from the hearing that we had, there's an appeal process, but it's kind of directly through the health department. They have an administrative process where they grant health licenses and health permits to businesses. And so it doesn't seem like there's really a legal process to it at all. It's more of an administrative process where they're given the authority, the sole authority to either issue, revoke, suspend, grant, not grant a health permit to any business. And they're kind of autonomous in that regard. So they act with impunity. They are able to go out and basically make whatever decisions they want to make, and there really is no recourse. You can say, hey, I don't agree with this, it's not fair, it's not right, why are you doing this? And they respond with kind of a robotic paperwork. Well, here's the 3 sections that you violated, therefore you are in violation, your license is now revoked, and that's that. And they wash their hands of it. There's really no process. There's really no, this is a very eerie situation that we're in, where a government agency like the health department can make these decisions at their sole discretion, and there's really no recourse. You can cry, you can yell, you can scream, you can beg, you can file appeals, you can get a lawyer. It doesn't really make any difference. They send you a letter at the end of the day and say, here's what you violated and here's what we're doing. And that's that. You're stuck following it, or that's it.
It's a gun or a gun kind of deal.
They and again, they do not care. If you shut your doors permanently, if you go out of business, it makes no difference to them whatsoever.
Well, the irony of that is that when all the restaurants are closed and they can't afford to stay open anymore, they're not going to need as many health inspectors. So there is a little bit of irony in this fact that they're putting themselves out of work eventually. But so you feel like there's no recourse for you there in California. Where does that leave other business owners in the state? Are they in the same situation? If they file the appeals and things like that, they're all just... And you said there was no funding in California to help bridge the gap. In the meantime, you have to go seek out your own funding, was my understanding?
Yeah, not currently. There's been things that I think Gavin Newsom said that they were going to do, but it's all just talk for the news. There aren't any programs that have been offered or given. One of the things that was given by the federal government was an SBA loan. But again, what are we doing here? We're digging a deeper hole. They're saying, here, take a loan for $150,000 so that you can get by. Okay, that loan needs to be paid back. Now you're on the hook for something that's going to take 30 years to pay back over an 8-month, 9-month pandemic. We've created a hole that's going to take now the rest of our lifetime to repay. I don't understand the thinking behind that. Getting a loan to pay bills that are due is not going to help a business, because now not only do I have to recover, find a way to profit, I have to find a way to profit and pay back a debt that was created during this pandemic. It's unbelievable. I don't know what our government expects us to do with any of this.
Do you feel it's short-sighted? Like there's no thought process into, like you said, how does this get paid back in the future? How do we prosper from here? Because your business, you started out at the beginning before COVID with, you said, roughly 12 to 14 employees. And then you turned around and now you were happy to have 4 to 6 in, was my understanding.
Yeah, we're operating on a skeleton crew. Again, I'm not a place that's designed to be profitable off of selling a few boxes of takeout. I'm trying to do that with just one person in the kitchen, one person in the front. And if anything, I can keep the doors open. I can keep the bills somewhat paid. If I can pay 80% of my bills, then I've made it. I'm a success story. I'm one of the few on the street that actually hasn't closed. And how has the bar gotten dropped so low that if you can just keep your doors open and the lights on, you're a success story? That's the saddest thing I've ever heard. I got into business so that I could be independent, so that I could work harder and smarter than the next, and I could make a better living, and I could hire employees, and I could provide jobs for people, and I could pay massive amounts of taxes into my local community. I could donate money to all of the organizations that are in my community. All of these things I've done, and I've done them all right. Over the last 7 years of being open, I there's tens of thousands of dollars every year that I've given back to my community. I've given back my profits. I've given back in the form of donations. We've done golf tournaments. We've given beer out for different events, for different, Rotary events and golf tournaments for, police funding and all these different things that I want to be a part of because I love my community. And now here we are as the outcasts. Nobody cares. Honestly, nobody cares. They do not care if the restaurant closes forever. The health department doesn't care. They look at you and they shake their head and they say, this is the rule and you either follow it or we close your door. And if you don't close your door, we're going to keep piling on the fines. We're going to revoke your permit. We're going to file legal proceedings against you. We're going to pile it on and on and on and on. And most people are not going to fight that. There's just no way. How can you? There's no way to fight it. There's no recourse.
Yeah, it's between a rock and a hard place, it sounds like. I want to ask a blunt and kind of prodding question a little bit, because I know there's a lot of people that think of business owners as selfish. I don't see you as that. I see you as somebody who got in the business for the right reasons, to try to build something and provide for yourself and others through that process. But what do you say to that person that thinks, like kind of suck it up? And you said there were some things like when the video started getting a lot of attention, that people were making comments about what you drove, and this is kind of the mentality behind it. So what do you say to that person that would say, hey, you're selfish, suck it up? And like, I look at the long-term consequences of what's going on and say that's going to affect you down the road, whether you see it or not.
Yeah.
This has kind of been my argument about here in Canada. They've locked everything down in the name of healthcare, and then they turned around. Did anybody think about 5-10 years from now, with less jobs means less taxable income, higher debt means higher taxes, and eventually it's going to have to be service, and things were likely going to be cut. I don't think anybody's thinking like that, but I want to hear from a business owner's perspective. What would you say to that person that thinks you're selfish and that it's all about you and you need to do your part?
I would say that's a very slippery slope for any human to be on, because what you're basically suggesting is that I take everything that I own and sell it in order to pay everybody else. I would challenge any person out there: sell everything you own and hand it to your boss in the morning when you go to work. Sell everything you own and go walk down, Skid Row here in California and pass it all out to the homeless people, if that's the way you truly feel. That's the issue that we're facing. That's a terrible way to think, because if we all start thinking that way, then what's the point? What's the point of going to work in the morning? What's the point of getting up and going to any job? Because you're not working for yourself. You're working so that you could make a decent living and then hand it off to somebody else. Is that what we're suggesting now? That if you do well in your life, you should have to empty your pockets and give it to everybody else. We do the best we can. As a business owner, I give everything I can, but I also have a family. I have 3 young boys that are going to need to go to college one day. I have a life that I'm trying to build with some sort of a future. I don't have a pension plan. Okay, I'm not working for some company that's providing a 401k for me for next week, for when I retire, for I don't have some sort of insurance plan that covers, loss of wages. I can't just go out and collect any of these benefits that the average person can when they lose their job. I'm a business owner. I've created it for myself. I'm on my own. I'm out on a limb by myself. And so sure, I can go sell my truck. I can sell my house. I can sell everything I own, pay all the bills. And then what would I be left with? I'd be left with nothing and no way of supporting my family. And I'd have 3 hungry boys living on the street, and I'd be homeless like the next guy. And so that's a very slippery slope. I don't understand the thinking there. I don't understand why people would even make comments like that. It's almost like they're kicking you when you're down. A business needs cash flow. We create business in order to provide a cash flow for not just me, but many, many people. And if the sales go up, another person has to be hired. If the sales go up even more, another person in the kitchen, another person out front. It provides jobs. The sales don't go up and then my bank account gets bigger. The sales go up and then proportionately I have to raise my baseline with those sales going up. And that's the way a business works. And we operate off of a cash flow. Selling one thing that you own is not going to solve the problem. We're 8 months into a pandemic, and every month that goes by is $8, 10, 12, $15,000 in the hole. I didn't just go out and buy a vehicle with all the money I had pouring out of my bank account. That's a liability just like every other liability. There isn't any money there. I could sell my truck, I'd pay the bank, and there wouldn't be anything left anyways.
That's exactly what I think people need to understand and hear. Um, the burden that's been placed on the shoulders of business owners all around the world in the name of combating COVID, I think, is not only short-sighted, but it's disproportionate. And I think you touched on it with certain stores and certain businesses getting a pass. I wanted to ask you how you felt about that, because the unfairness of the situation is so clear that anybody with half a brain, as they would say, can see that that should be an issue. But how do you take that as a business owner? Like you said, you've done everything right. You've fought, you've competed, and because you did a good job, you've been there with Bread and Barley for over 7 years now, and now it's being taken away not because of anything you did, but because of something that happened. So, and then other businesses are being given the opportunity to follow through. So, how does that make you feel? And not to make it so childish to say that way, but like, how do you feel about that, knowing that somebody's being given that opportunity, and the governors? It seems like they're picking and choosing favorites in the market.
Well, when the environment has been altered, then what are we left with? Because as small business owners, it's not like we've made the wrong choices in our businesses. It's not like we got up in the morning and decided to come in and be rude to all of our customers and chase them out, or, serve something that's unappealing on our menu, or not follow some sort of health protocol that got a bunch of people sick. These are things that we all worry about as business owners, as small restaurant owners in particular. We're always worried about getting someone sick, or serving good quality food, or putting out a good product, or giving good service, and our staff doing the right job, and training and doing all these things the right way. This is nothing to do with that. This is not a poor decision on any one business owner that did anything wrong to deserve any of this. We're trying to get through it as best we can, trying to navigate something that happens once in hundreds and hundreds of years. Maybe this is something that hopefully I never see again in my lifetime, and my kids never see in their lifetime. So how do you don't plan for something like this? This isn't something that you sit down on a Monday afternoon and say, hey, if one day there were a pandemic, I should be ready for it. It doesn't work that way. And the climate that's been created by our leaders is a climate that is not conducive to us surviving, but is conducive to those big box retailers doing even better. If you close down all the restaurants, there's only one place to get food. You got to go to the big box stores. You got to go to grocery stores. You got to go shop for yourself. If you close all the little restaurants, what's left? I don't know what people are thinking. And like you said, the long-term effect of this is we're removing the middle class completely. We're taking an entire class of people that have worked hard to earn a living their entire lives. In my case, this is all I have. I have a restaurant that I spent the last 7 years, prior to that 2 years, building before I could even open the location up, so that I would have something that maybe I could pass down to my kids, something that I could build and nurture and respect, and have some sort of a nest egg that could continue an income for maybe multi-generational. And now here we are in a situation where the government says, hey, we don't care. We don't care. Close your doors, sell takeout only, and you should be happy to do that. You should be thanking us for letting you do that. And it's not enough. So
Do you feel sorry.
I don't know where we go from here.
Do you feel like small business is kind of the scapegoat in the situation, where you have these issues with rising cases, and there needs to be the appearance of something being done, and it's easier to come after the small fish than it is to go after the bigger ones with the legal representation and lobbyists, etc.?
Of course, a health inspector could walk into Bread and Barley and say, is Carlos here? And then I'd walk out and say, "Hi, I'm Carlos." And they say, "You're doing everything wrong. Here's your citation." They can't go into Target and say, "Hey, is Mr. Target here?" There's no such thing. They can't go into Costco and say, "Hey, where's the owner? I'd like to speak to him." You don't do that. The health inspector could walk into a Costco tomorrow and there isn't a single employee in there that would even know how to receive them or what to say. They would say, here's 4 phone numbers, call our corporate office back in Albuquerque or wherever it is, because that's the way they deal with that. And then when they do get back to the health department, it's going to be a team of 6 or 8 or 10 attorneys that are going to challenge every single word that comes out of that person's mouth to the absolute letter of every law that was ever created from the dawn of existence to today. And so the health department knows that, our governor knows that, our leaders know that. They're not going to go up against these big companies because they have the ability to fight. Our film industry in Southern California, they were able to go back to work. They issued protocols. They said, here's how you eat when it's time to eat lunch. Here's how you provide meals. Here's how you are on the set. Here's the PPE equipment that you use. They gave them the tools they needed to continue. Why? Because they had the powerful people that could go in and lobby at the government level and say, hey, people are losing their jobs. We can't continue this. We don't have that as small businesses, as small restaurants. We don't have that kind of representation. So we fall by the wayside. I don't mind following some rules. If the health department came in tomorrow and my government came in tomorrow and said, hey, Carlos, we're going to let you reopen your restaurant. Here's how. Here's what you need to do to follow it. I'm used to following rules. I've been following rules since day one. I had to get a health permit. I had to get a conditional use permit and an alcohol license. I have to get a tax permit. I have to do all of these things. I have to get a business license. I have to pay all the utilities. I have to make sure that I follow every single rule and protocol. I've been doing that since day one. I don't mind doing that. But they're giving us nothing. They're not saying, hey, here's what we're going to do to get you reopened. They're saying, nah, stay closed. We don't care who loses their job. Tell your employees to collect unemployment. Oh, by the way, you're paying into that unemployment probably for the rest of your life. And we'll open when we tell you you can. And as of right now, there's no end in sight.
I was going to ask about that. There doesn't seem like there's an exit point on the horizon.
No, they've extended this through February. There's no end in sight.
I think this is exactly what a lot of people are going through. They just extended the orders here, I think, to the 23rd of February. Similar situation. At least in Ontario where I'm at, there's curfew after 8 p.m. Only essential businesses can be open after 8 p.m. And you're supposed to only go out for essential purposes, where they're basically policing who's on the street. Quebec and the French-speaking part of Canada is even worse. They actually have 8 p.m. curfew, where they have police up and down the street every 15 minutes going through neighborhoods. They had a helicopter. It could be heard in a news broadcast overhead. This is kind of how they're treating it there. And I don't know what the answer is for a business owner like you here in Canada or here anywhere. There doesn't seem to be an end in sight. There doesn't seem to be help on the horizon. And there doesn't seem to be any way to get back to a sentiment or semblance of normal for a business owner. Like you said, you're willing to follow the rules if you're given the set of rules to go and abide by, but you're not even given the opportunity currently.
It's a tough one.
That's not a lot to say about it, that's for sure. Bread and Barley is Carlos Roman. And so it's not just a business like a job for someone else. That's a piece of you that, through no fault of your own, is kind of being almost taken away from you at this point. I do hope things turn around.
It's very personal. I built the building that Bread and Barley's in. And so, I can recount the nights working there and hanging the fixtures in the restrooms and, painting the walls and putting up tile and laying the floor, doing all these things myself. Anyone that's done work to their home knows that sense of pride and ownership and care that you put into when you're doing something, when you're creating something from the ground up. I didn't have the money to hire a bunch of contractors to do all this work for me. I was drawing from my own personal legacy of a life of working hard in order to build something at this juncture in my life. And it is rolling the dice in the most profound way you could roll the dice. You're taking everything you've ever earned in your entire lifetime and you're betting it on a business, hoping that it works out. And I don't know that anybody that hasn't done that could possibly understand or grasp what that means. Take every single thing that you own, sell it off, collect all the money you can, take every penny in your bank account, and then write a check to a hope and a dream, and pray to God that it's going to work. And the day that I opened those doors and I saw customers come through and they loved the food and they loved the environment, I smiled and I thought, okay, this may work. This may just work out. This restaurant thing might pay off one day. It might happen for me. And then you get hit with a whole set of challenges, and you know that it's not going to be easy. It's an uphill battle, and you're going to deal with all the regulation and all the issues that we have to deal with on a regular basis, and that's okay. That's part of owning a business. We signed up for it, and so you roll with the punches. But this situation just really feels like the powers that be have just decided to revoke everything I've worked my entire life for and just pull it out from under me. And there's no regard. They don't care. It doesn't matter what happens. Somehow I'm left to fend for myself and figure it out tomorrow. And that was the anger and the frustration that you saw in my video, because I wanted everyone there to really dig deep and think hard about, what is the solution? You're telling me to call a supervisor. Okay, I've called every supervisor there is. Give me something else. What else is there? Well, this isn't the way to do it. Okay, well, what's the way to do it? There is no way to do this, guys. We need to make some noise. We need to get loud. We need to be upset. We need to show them that there's no way to do this. That is the point. The point is, we're at a level of there's no more solution. I need something. Someone is going to have to lose their life before anyone listens anymore. I don't understand what has to happen here.
I'm going to ask a question. Feel free to pass on it. But the pride that you take in your business, it's evident to me, and I'm sure it'll be evident to the people who watch this. But if you knew 9 years ago when you started building the building for Bread and Barley what was going to happen today, would you still have gone through with the process? And that's kind of a hypothetical out there, but
I'll tell you what a lot of very intelligent people told me when I got involved in the restaurant in the first place. They said, Carlos, ignorance is bliss. And you don't know what you don't know. And that became apparent every step of the way. When I started building Bread and Barley, I didn't think it was that expensive to remodel a building. I didn't think it was that expensive to put a grease hood into a kitchen. I didn't think it was that expensive to install a grease trap in the ground. I mean, all of these things, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know it was that expensive. I didn't know it was going to be as difficult as it was. And so now looking back, I mean, had I known all this was going to happen, yeah, I would have chose some other sort of business. I would have got into something that was pandemic proof. Maybe I would have sold workout equipment or done something that apparently has done really well during a pandemic. So, but who's got that crystal ball? Nobody does. We don't get into business thinking we're going to fail. We get into business to give it our all and do our best. And again, that goes back to what I said earlier. This isn't due to bad decision making. This isn't due to poor planning. This isn't. Prior to COVID-19, Bread and Barley was one of, if not the most successful restaurant on my street. Why? Because I created an environment that people love, an environment that people can't wait to go back to. The craft beer that I procure, I go far and wide. I drive sometimes 2, 3, 4 hours away to pick up a couple of kegs of beer from a brewery that no one else can get in my neighborhood, because I want to bring that product to my customer. I have chefs that I bring fresh out of culinary school that are just raging to show what they can do. And I come in and I say, hey, surprise me with something. Let's see if it makes it on the menu. Let's make something new. Let's make something fresh. Let's give our a menu a new shot. And they are so excited to do that. And I see these culinary students light up when people enjoy their food and their creations. And I give them that freedom and that power to do that, because I know that's what drives them. And that's what keeps fresh new ideas in my restaurant and people coming back for more. So I got into this out of a passion, bringing a good product to my community. I didn't get into it thinking that it was going to have to become some chop shop fast food restaurant that's a takeout, carry out to go business only.
Well, it is something that's going to happen if something doesn't drastically change. Is we're going to be down to fast food only, and really the gourmet restaurant like Bread and Barley will cease to exist. Only the biggest will survive. And
In some ways, I feel like the biggest in the restaurant world could be the first to go out of business because they don't have the tolerance for those sort of losses. And that's what's going to cost us taxpayers and our state the most money. Because when you get a company like Applebee's or Ruth's Chris or Olive Garden or these big restaurant groups, when they come and they file bankruptcy, it's not going to be like me filing bankruptcy for a couple of $100,000. They're going to file bankruptcy for hundreds of millions of dollars because they have leaseholds and buildings all over the state that cannot support themselves anymore. And that's going to be devastating when we start seeing that happen.
well, it's not even something I thought about, but you're right. All restaurants run on low margin, and so it doesn't matter the size of the franchise, so to speak, like an Applebee's or a Montana's, or I'm not sure what else is down the Cracker Barrel. They're all going to be affected eventually, and they're already currently affected. So I'm sure there's a bunch of those that aren't doing well. I'd be curious to look at the stocks after I get out of the interview here. But no, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me in Diverge Media about what it is that a small business owner, specifically a restaurateur, is going through during COVID. Because I think, again, it's different countries, slightly different economic situations, but both restaurant owners have been asked to do the same thing. The only difference I can see is that restaurant owners here in Ontario, at least, were offered a government loan, but it's the same thing, like you said. They still got to dig themselves out of that, and that's an additional burden they have to take on something that's already a hard business to make it in.
You've added a financial burden on top of something that's already financially a burden. I don't understand the logic there. It's like that would be like handing a homeless person the keys to a brand new Mercedes and saying, "Here, congratulations, and now your payment's $1,500 a month. Go have fun. Good luck." They don't have the means to pay for it in the first place. Why would you do something like that? That's terrible. And so all they've done is they've really just said, okay, here, dig yourself out of the hole. Here's all the money you're going to need to do it. By the way, you're going to have to pay it all back very shortly.
Yeah, even if you make it out of the hole that you've dug just to make it out of what we put you through, the measures we've implemented, then you're still going to have to figure out how to pay back and fill in the hole.
You owe us your life at this point.
Oh, and this is something to put in perspective. Like you said, 20, 25, 30 years it would take you to pay back everything that you owe at this point. Well, that's a mortgage. Like That is a mortgage for life. Like that is a life mortgage. And to put that in perspective for other people, would you be okay with having to take out another entire mortgage on another home because of something that you had no effect over and was no fault of your own? And you were already doing, this is the part that's most frustrating for me as an independent journalist talking about these things, is you were already doing all the little things right. You were already taking those extra precautions. And then you got dinged because somebody decided to stop and eat a few things from your restaurant, and I'm sure it was delicious, and they wanted to get in it right away, and you're penalized now. And realistically, it's not just you; it's your employees. I remember you talking in the video about one of your chefs had just had a child, and those are the people that are going to be out looking for jobs. And there's
where does a chef go from here? If you're a chef that went to culinary school and worked really hard to provide gourmet food, there isn't another restaurant on the street that you could go knock on the door and get a job at, because we're all in the same situation. So what's left? I don't understand what's left for any of us at this point.
All right, well, I'm going to give you a chance to close out here. Plug anything you want to plug. And if you want to leave with a message to the viewer, something that you think needs to be heard, then go ahead. The platform is yours.
I mean, I really think that it's very important to support small businesses. I think anywhere, anytime that a person can really stop and think, should I be ordering this from Amazon, or is this something that I can go get maybe in a local downtown or a mom and pop shop? Rather than going to Home Depot, can I go to the local, True Value Hardware or Ace Hardware or some sort of smaller hardware store that someone in our local community owns? Can I allocate my money somewhere locally if I'm going to have to spend it and I'm going to have to purchase things? Is there a smaller way to do that where I'm helping my community rather than lining the pockets of these big corporations and making them even more powerful?
If they didn't have a monopoly over the market before, they're certainly in a better shape to have a monopoly over the market now.
Yeah.
And I think you nailed it. The Amazon thing, I don't know what it's like where you're at, but we've had memes going around. Like, we're all in this together. That was one of them. But, support small business, and we need to take care of them. There was a meme that was going around here in Canada. It was like a picture of a Little League team. And it was like, remember when you asked a small business owner to help this? Well, they need your help now. And I still don't see, per se, that united support behind the small business owner, because people are hurting too. People are being laid off from their jobs. And then it's like, if somebody said, hey, do you want to spend $1 or a couple bucks more on someplace else that's local? And most people aren't thinking like that. And it's such an inconvenience to even go out nowadays that I think there's a lot of people that would rather order from an Amazon than have to go to the mom and pop shop. Not to be a Debbie Downer, but trying to see it from all angles here. And I feel you where it feels like a grim situation. I don't know what the answer is, other than people need to wake up to the reality of what business owners are facing. And once the business owner goes, your job's soon to follow after.
Yeah.
Thank you, Carlos Roman from Bread and Barley in Covina, California, for joining Diverge Media to talk about the realities that small business is facing during the ongoing shutdowns and lockdowns and COVID protocols in general. Thank you, Carlos.
Thank you.
Make sure to like and share this interview so that people understand how hard these lockdowns are on business owners, especially small restaurateurs. Thank you.